Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Van Buren Variety Show. Very glad you could join us this evening. I'm Bob Van Buren, your host. Just a reminder that there is a live show every week, once a week, with an individual guest and an interesting topic. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you won't miss anything that's coming up. I hope everybody has had a wonderful week. I certainly have. For all those of us here in the United States, we just celebrated our Independence Day, and I saw a very interesting fireworks show where I live. So they're also handing out little trinkets. So let me show you what I got for free. Yeah, you can imagine about hundreds of thieves out in the audience, everybody wearing one. I know, I'm still a kid at heart. I'll never grow up. But yeah, so happy Independence Day, United States, and wherever country you're from. I'm sure everybody has an Independence Day eventually. So hopefully you had a good Independence Day wherever you live. So I have really had fun with that. So we'll put the toy away for now. So anyway, so I've had a great week. Like I said, I watched an interesting fireworks show, and really had spent some time with family. That's really important too. So what I want to talk about tonight, talking about family. In a world now that is so fast now, and what I mean by fast is we have texting, we have email, where it's just so simple to just go to someone and say, "Hey, I'll be there in a minute. Hey, love you, bye." We've lost a lot of the human emotion in that. So unfortunately, a lot of our family members and friends really don't know how strong we feel about them and how much we love them and how much we care for them. So what is the solution to that in this fast-paced world? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am in the middle right now of reading a book that solves all those issues with any type of relationship that you may have. Let me bring up the book cover before I bring the author on. This book is entitled How to Write Heartfelt Letters to Treasure for Special Occasions and Occasions Made Special. By Lynette Smith. And let me tell you folks, this book has everything and anything you could possibly want to write to someone in your life, be it a spouse, a child, a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, and all sorts of other events and people in your life. So I have the pleasure of having the author of this book on my show tonight. And we're going to be talking about how to write heartfelt letters. So let me bring her on board now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Lynette Smith, the author of How to Write Heartfelt Letters. Lynette, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Bob. It's so good to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, let's just jump right in. Like I said, I'm in the middle of reading your book. And I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. So I guess my first question to you is, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, it happened. This wonderful incident happened back in the fall of 2008. Our son was going to get married, and we were at the rehearsal dinner. And he and his bride-to-be each brought out, I'm going to grab it,
okay,
the most wonderful framed letter of appreciation to their parents, their respective parents. So this letter was written to my husband and me.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
And he knew he was going to get all teary-eyed and everything. So he had his best man read this letter, and his wife had her maid of honor read that letter to the parents while they each stood beside their own parents. And my gosh, it was, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. You know, my son wrote in general, I could read the thing verbatim, but I'll tell you in general, he talked about what it was like growing up in the household with us. And he talked about his dad's best qualities, and he talked about my best qualities. And then he talked about the fact that he appreciated the values he had learned in our family and that he was planning to bring into his own marriage. And then he
That's nice.
That. Yeah, really. You know,
I'm starting to teary-eyed too here.
Because this is a lot of years later. Think about it. This is 2021. So doing the higher math here, we've got 13 years later, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about that, I read it, I talk about it, I need a tissue. I still need a tissue. And my hand just kind of goes here. And I'm just going, now that is a gift that lasts.
And a gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes. And I think it will forever. I think it'll last, beyond my lifetime, because it'll end up back in the hands of his daughters now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to keep that as a memento of what their grandparents were like.
Absolutely.
So it's wonderful. And I was thinking as time went on, I wish more people knew about this idea at weddings, of writing to their parents. And how can I get the word out? And I made some efforts in that direction. But over time, I realized, interesting, maybe I should write a book about writing all kinds of letters of appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
But I only just thought it. This is a kind of a funny side story, but it's still relevant. Okay. I was just thinking about it. I never even told my husband I was thinking that. I was just thinking it for a long time. And then it got to be 2011. And I was meeting with a business friend. She was learning how to do something called hand analysis, where it had to do with life purpose and so forth. And she needed guinea pigs. And I was one of her guinea pigs, and she had analysis. And then she was meeting with me to explain what her written analysis meant. And she basically said, well, you've got a pretty well-balanced life on this hand and here and so forth. And on this hand, it's good here and here and here. But this finger has a problem. I said, really?
A problem?
Yeah, it has an issue. She didn't say problem. She did it all right,
Okay.
You have something here that maybe isn't real well resolved in terms of your life purpose or something. And she says, when you do things, you get really gung-ho and you want to move forward with it and you're all excited until that final step that's going to make or break it, and you freeze. And so in so many words, she was telling me I was a professional procrastinator.
There's a compliment in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, I said, Louise, you're so right. And even as we speak, there's a couple of issues in my life that I'm wanting to move forward, kind of freezing. And I said, one of them is this whole idea about whether I should write a book about writing all types of heartfelt letters of appreciation. At that very moment, I'm telling you the truth, I got a thought, an intuitive thought in my mind, message, and the very words were, your book will be published by August 15th. Not a yes or a no, but an answer to the question that I, for the very first time, voiced out of my mouth.
That's an interesting, wow.
Yeah, words have power when they're spoken.
Yes.
And it was like manifesting what my real question was. Oh, well, finally you asked. Okay, here.
There it is.
and this was in November of 2011. And so over the years, I've learned to pay attention to that voice. It pops in from time to time, different interesting circumstances. And it's the angel on the shoulder voice, not the devil on the shoulder voice. So
right. Make sure you know the difference here.
Recognize it. And so I thought, well, if I've got that kind of a strong message coming, I'm going to do this. Absolutely. And so I set about applying myself, being a very methodical type of person that I am. My first thought was, write a table of contents as a glorified outline, make it very, very detailed.
Right.
So I was composing that over the next couple of weeks, and I was at that stage. I hadn't even thought about what do I title the book or anything else. I was just making an outline. Minding my own business one morning, brushing my teeth. Here comes that voice. It says, how to write heartfelt letters to treasure for special occasions and occasions made special, And I went, spit out the toothpaste, get a scratch paper and write it down real quick. I wasn't even thinking about, gee, what should I call this book? It was the last thing on my mind,
Right
but
there.
this came to me. And I went, all right. So I wrote that down and I talked to 2 or 3 people who kind of know what they're doing in the book world. And I said, what do you think of this title? And the consensus was it's a little bit long, but it's appropriate. It tells what you're going to get.
It's right to the point, if I could say that. Yeah.
And they said, it's good. And I said, all right, that's the title of my book.
And it's perfect, Lynette. I mean, it really just, in fact, I'll show ladies and gentlemen, I have my own copy of this book and I highly recommend it. It's and you'll get a little on some of them probably like I did. So let me ask you, Lynette, when you wrote this book, why do you, I'll just bring the question, why do you think it's important for people to write heartfelt letters to each other?
Well, you touched on that earlier where you were talking about this in a hurry world.
Yes.
Texts. Texts are fleeting. They're just conversation. They're nothing anybody saves. Even an email, you may try to save it, but you know that it gets buried further and further down the list, or your computer crashes,
or deletes it,
or you forget to print it out, and you think, and let's suppose on the other hand, someone just says something nice to you. Gosh, I really appreciate how you handled that project, that event we just put together. You know, you did such a great job, and you feel good at the moment hearing that. But a year from now, you're going to go, I think someone said something nice.
What project?
Yeah, maybe even what project. So the lasting value is not there. Now, there are circumstances in which it's appropriate to write a thank you note, you know, and you kind of have an idea when that happens. But here's the thing, when it's extra special, when the magnitude of your gratitude is bigger than a thank you note, that is the time to write a heartfelt letter of appreciation, also called a gratitude letter, because that's going to get it in detail in writing, just like that. And it's still here today. It's got a place of honor in our home, and we're still every bit as moved when we read it as we were the first time when it was read to us. That is lasting value. And as I mentioned earlier, it may go on to future generations. Someday I won't be here anymore, neither will my husband, but my son's daughters will be here. And this will be a way for them to remember their grandparents and what they were like. So there's legacy involved. So these are legacy situations. To give you another example, I had a cousin who was a school teacher in the 6th grade for her entire career. And she retired, and many years later, she ended up being terminal, and she was in hospice care.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And while she was in hospice care, her husband and adult children were saying, if you'd like, you can come over and visit with her. You know, it was in her home, and she was slipping. She was only going to last a few more days, the way they figured. And so I wrote her a letter because I knew how many lives she had touched as a teacher. She was everybody's favorite teacher. She really, really was. And my brother was one of her students at one point.
Wow.
She was teaching in the neighborhood. And everybody loved Mrs. Maccabee. Everybody loved Mrs. Maccabee. And she just made such a wonderful impression on everybody. And I was able to relate that to her. And I wrote a letter and I talked about, do you realize over your 25-year career, if you had, you know, this many students on average in the classroom, do you realize you've touched over 1,000 people's lives in your career?
That's nice.
And in what positive way you've made a difference to them in school by caring about them as individuals and so on. They may have come home and might have improved their home life and affected other people in the family. You just never know how many lives you're really touching. And
you never know.
You've done a fantastic, fantastic job, and you should be very proud of the effect you've had during your lifetime, on other
Absolutely.
people. And I read her that aloud, sitting by her bedside, tears rolling down my own face.
I'm sure.
And then I handed it to her daughter to save for later. And her daughter I was told later her daughter read it to her again a couple more times before she died.
Oh,
And
that's powerful. I love hearing that.
And later on, they had a life celebration for her, and they brought that letter out and asked me to read it again.
Oh, wow, what an honor.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, wait, Lynette, I'm sorry.
That's it.
I was going to say, in your book, some people might be looking at this like, well, I don't know if this might apply to me, but you talk about different letters that you can write to different people. So can you just name some people that maybe you've addressed in here that a person could write a heartfelt letter to? just that brief. I know there's quite a bit.
How long a list would you like? One day I sat down, I'm not going to read you the whole list, but I made a list of all the types of people who might want to get one of these letters. There's 157 of them.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to do that to you. So I'm just going to pick and choose here.
Sure. Yeah.
There is a chapter on birthdays, so there's different milestone birthdays. With school, there are milestones related to school, first day of middle school or high school, last day, and so on and so forth. Of course, graduation. In the military, basic training and graduation. A military retirement is a very special time. Veterans Day to anybody who's been a veteran. Memorial Day to honor those who died in their nation's service. Again,
absolutely.
After they've lived, but you could write a letter to their family talking about how much you appreciate their service.
Absolutely.
Family in general, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day in September. Talking about cultural and religious rites of passage. Somebody's born. That's kind of important. Some religious traditions have rites of passage. In the Catholic Church, they have the First Communion and the things like that. In the Jewish faith, there's the Bar Mitzvah and the Bat Mitzvah.
Yeah, that's right. You got it.
So age 13 for that. They've got in the Hispanic tradition, when a girl turns 15, she has her quinceañera, which is her special celebration. It's like coming out saying, I can date now, basically. Sure. But it's also, I'm a young woman now. And absolutely. That's in that tradition. So that's
that's awesome
to write her. And career, all kinds of opportunities in career. Did you ever hear of writing your boss a letter of appreciation?
Hardly ever thought of, yeah.
Or your boss's boss to say, my supervisor really rocks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And retirement, of course. And then it talks about honoring teachers, mentors, coaches, and students. Thanking someone who created a great product or offers a wonderful service. Honoring a special friendship. And then I've already told you the story about if somebody's in hospice, what better time to help them know that they have made a positive difference in this world.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
So, and then there's this funny little thing about mending a torn relationship. It's a different kind of letter of appreciation. It's accentuating the positive and decentuating the negative. It's an attempt to try to rebuild a relationship that has gone bad for whatever reason.
And I was going to bring that up, Lynette. That was one of my topics. In fact, a lot of people, I'm sure my audience, everybody at one time has had a relationship go bad, whether that be a marriage that's gone bad, a friendship that's gone bad, a fight with a family member. And I'll just put myself out there. We talked before the show. I lost a very, very good friend that I knew for many years. There was a disagreement, and we just don't talk anymore. And so I'll just put my own self out there, Lynette. If I wanted to mend this friendship with this person and, make things right, put the past behind us, what would you recommend I do as writing the letter?
Well, the first thing is whatever it was that caused the relationship to go bad, if it was a misunderstanding, if it was something, let's suppose hypothetically, something you did that rubbed him the wrong way, or something he did that rubbed you the wrong way, whatever, own up to it. Acknowledge what it was and say, the more I think about it, the more I think, it was an awful thing. And if there was any way that I was at fault, I sincerely apologize. And we've been friends for so long. I'd love to see us rebuild that friendship and give it another try and just put this behind us, because we had a good thing when we had that good thing. And I want to see that be the case again. You're a good person. I would like to be part of your life.
And how should the letter be delivered?
Not in person.
Not in person. Remember that, folks. Not in person.
Not in person, because if there's any angst at all between the two parties, and even if one feels good walking up to the front door of the other one and saying, "Hi, I wanted to give you this letter," or "I wanted to read you this letter," and the other one saying, "I don't want to see your face," slam.
Yeah.
Because they haven't heard it yet, and they feel they may need to posture and,
Yeah. How dare you?
How dare you, and all of that. So what you want to do is present this in a non-confrontational way. In other words, mail it.
Yeah.
Because there's no witnesses to whether they're opening the envelope, to say, that they have to show off to or posture towards. Say, gee, I can just open it and read it. And yeah, we've got to be realistic and say, I don't care what he says. I don't care how sorry he is. I never want to see that man again. Well, that's up to him, because you've made the gesture, and it's up to him what he wants to do with it. If he wants to rebuild the friendship, he'll throw out you've thrown out your olive branch. He might give you one back, You
never know.
And if he doesn't, you let it go, but you feel better about having left it on good terms and owned up to whatever it is you wanted to say. So yeah, make it non-confrontational. And one of the things when you're writing that letter is never point that thing. Never point that thing in your writing. And so it's important to get a couple of drafts at least of this thing going, because the first one, there may be some upset in there that sneaks into that letter. Go ahead, draft it out, pour your heart out.
Yep.
Let it sit overnight. And then go back and read it. And you watch for that finger pointing. If there's any sign of that, then word it differently or take it out. Because you don't want to say, I should have, or you should have.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an expression, don't should on me.
Yeah, that's right. I like that.
Don't should on anybody else.
Okay. I got a question, Lynette, from somebody who's watching this live. In fact, I'll show it up here. The question is, what if you don't know what caused the rift? You have any suggestion on that?
Sure. Then you reach out anyway and you say, I don't know what happened to make our relationship go bad or our friendship go bad, but if it was something I did, I sincerely apologize. And if there's any way I can make amends, please let me know.
Okay.
And then go on from there.
Okay. I want to talk more about the good relationships. Those, I'm thinking parents, grandparents, and our children, would you say, how can I word this? Is there a set, or should I say an appropriate length? I mean, should the letter be a page, 2 pages, 3 pages? Is there either where it's too short or too long? What's your opinion about that?
Well, it depends whether you're going to put it in a picture frame, first thing.
Okay.
Because, if my son might have had a lot more to say, but he couldn't fit it in a page that would fit in
one letter. Yeah.
They do have binders sometimes that you can get, these little certificate binders, and they might be a means of having a multiple page document, but only the first page would show in it. They have those little slots in there, and you tuck these little 8.5 by 11 certificates. Well, in this case, you tuck a letter in there.
Sure.
Or a 3-page letter, but only the first page shows. Or you can get something specially bound if it's several pages, and go to your local copy center and see what options they provide for that. If you want to write 3 pages, I think you should. But if you think it's going to be framed, I think you should pare it down to 1 page.
Yeah, I see what you're saying for display purposes. I see that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that also tells you one more thing. Buy the frame and the mat board so you know how much space you've got to work with.
Let me zoom in on that really quick so everybody can see that.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks really nice. The way you got it matted, you mean it's like that. It's a family heirloom now.
Yeah. Can I read you the first paragraph?
Absolutely. I think our audience would love that.
To my mom and dad, growing up in our household has been a priceless experience. I remember taking many vacations and spending many hours in a car as just the 3 of us, sometimes 4. That would have been his best friend who would come along. Maybe the dog other times. I recently learned that while the destination may instigate the journey, it is in fact the journey itself that is the cause of personal growth. In the broader sense, life itself is about the journey, not the destination. All the past experiences of my life have cultivated me to be the man I am today. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to skip to the last paragraph because he brings it in there. I love it. There are far too many experiences in our lives to share in this short letter. I understand it has been at times difficult to raise me. I will always be eternally grateful for the experience I have had with such wonderful parents. I have tried to highlight a few things I have learned. I will continue to try to be a good person and now a good husband. One chapter of my life now comes to an end, and I will now embark on the next leg of our journey with my wife Rachel riding shotgun.
Oh, wow. That is so well written.
So in fact, that was so cool.
Here's a comment from somebody from our audience.
Yes, he was a good writer. He really was. When he wrote about my qualities as a mother, he mentioned something about, no doubt you will find several errors in this letter. And by way of background, that's because I'm a professional copy editor and proofreader.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah,
so he was really putting himself out there to not have me proofread this thing he was going to present to us.
Red ink everywhere, red circles. Yeah.
So that took some bravery.
But it's perfect, just the way he wrote it. That was very touching. You could tell he really put his heart into that too.
Yeah.
And so,
you know what was so weird? He thought of this idea. His wife didn't. He did.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yes. And he presented the idea to her. And she said, yeah, okay, we can do that.
That's real special. And like I said, you remember it forever,
Yeah.
So here's another question for you. When someone is writing a heartfelt letter, like I said, to their spouse or their parent or their child, grandparent even, or best friend, coworker, whoever, does it matter or does it mean more for the letter to be handwritten or typed, or does that make any difference at all?
Several factors enter into play. For myself, I can write a handwritten letter, but I think better at the computer and I compose better. And if I use the right font, I can make it to where it's more readable to the reader. Suppose I'm writing to somebody who's got macular degeneration.
Oh, really? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got to get nice, big, bold print. So in some respects, that computerized letter is going to be a better one. But in other respects, a handwritten one is just fine, But write it on nice stationery. Don't just grab a legal tablet and start writing. That's good for your first draft. Mm-hmm. But put it on nice stationery afterwards. As a matter of fact, when you are putting it on nice stationery, one of the things that can tend to go wrong is you start writing crooked.
Oh, okay.
You can use the computer to make some bold lines at, say, 1/4-inch intervals or something and put it behind your piece of paper. So you've got a kind of a shadowed outline of where to keep the lines straight when you're writing. That's just a little
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But also, as far as a nice stationery, you're going to say, well, where do you get nice stationery? That's hard to do, but it's not hard if you have a computer to bring in some bordered artwork. And if you have a color printer,
Yeah.
you print the bordered artwork, and now you have your nice stationery. Even that has a caution. What are you using to print? If you're using an inkjet printer, that piece of paper with the ink on it is going to be a problem if it gets wet or it's in a high humidity environment.
That's true. Yeah.
So you might want to take one more step first and get that photocopied with color toner at the local copy center, and then use that, because that won't run like inkjet.
Sure.
So, and if, for example, you're doing your entire letter, the border and the print on the computer, and you only have an inkjet printer, go ahead and print it all out. But before you sign it, go get it photocopied with the color toner, and then sign that one.
That's a good idea. Yes, I never thought of that. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Things can go wrong. But wait, there's more.
Okay. Stay tuned, everybody. Don't tune out just yet.
Don't tune out yet, because let's talk about laser printed letters.
Okay.
If this is going to be folded and go into an envelope, there's a risk. The risk is called ghosting. It doesn't mean what the current meaning is.
Yeah.
A ghost image. If you've got a piece of paper and you fold it like this, and then you fold it like that.
I'll zoom in. Whoop.
Through their high temperature equipment, what's going to happen is these two surfaces that both have laser toner on them, they're going to make a ghost image onto each other. So what's the solution? Is to fold it to the outside. So if you get a ghost image, who gives a darn? It's only going to make a ghost image on the back.
That's a really great idea. Wow. I never would have even thought about that. Oh, wow. Especially if it's a keepsake. What's that? I didn't hear it.
I've learned some of these things the hard way.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Oh, speaking of the hard way, now a lot of people, including myself, before I started reading your book, that might be, watching this, they might be thinking, well, I want to express my love for my spouse or my parent or my child or my grandparent, and I just can't find the words. Did you do anything in the book, especially to help people find words?
Did I do something in this book to help? Yes, sir, I did.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there'll be no loss of words if you look at this. Okay, let me zoom in again.
This is just 2 of 15 demographic word lists to describe somebody special. Several positive words. There's 72 words on each of these pages. I mean, here I have someone religious or spiritual. That's one of the lists. And I'm going to just read you about 10 words right out of the middle.
Okay.
Inspiring, interested, intuitive, kind-hearted, likable, merciful, moral, motivational, obedient, patient, peaceful, peacemaking, perceptive. So what you can do when you're thinking, yes, I want to tell how much I appreciate that person, you go to the list or lists that apply to that person. It might be an older woman who is also religious or spiritual. So you can look at a couple of lists and take a look and see which of those words apply and jot them down. And then when you've got this nice long list of perfect words to describe that person, pare it down to the most important ones. You might pick 3 or 4 or 5 things. Sure. And then just write about those. And you've got it.
That's awesome. And in fact, I read that. There's even a part in there you talk about writing to a child, and then writing to, like, you mentioned veterans earlier. And you mentioned, and I'm talking about parents and grandparents. You gave that like a supervisor or an employee. How would you, what are words that would describe that person? So ladies and gentlemen, you have no excuse for a loss of words anymore. You want to write your heart.
A bunch of them in there. And interestingly, there's even a backstory to each of those lists.
Oh, is
I
there?
went
Okay, let me hear it.
I'll reach up and show you. I went to my Webster's New World Speller Divider back
Oh,
then,
yeah. Perfect.
and I read through this thing. I made a list of all the positive words in here, and I started with that, and there were over 1,000 of them. And
Really?
then I took
Whoa.
those 1,000 plus, and
Uh-huh.
I said, okay, now for a military service member, which ones apply? So I had to print out several columns of those words, and I just crossed out the words that didn't apply, and I pare it down and pare it down and pare it down till I got it down to 72 words. So those are the most powerful positive words for each of those demographic groups. I worked hard at that.
That's really I applaud you for doing that, because sometimes I'll know what I want to say, but I just cannot find the word. It's just it evades me. So that's a really helpful right there. So I want to ask you, just on a personal level, Lynette, how does that make you feel, knowing that you've wrote such a wonderful book that's going to touch people's lives, and that they can express themselves lovingly to their significant other, their parents, whoever. So what has that done for you? I'll put it that way.
Well, it's made me feel like that's the difference I can make in the world, is to get people to write these letters so that they can establish, enhance, and even rebuild their own relationships, and in that way change their world.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal over time is to get millions of people to write these letters, because I feel like in this world we've got a balancing scale. And by the way, I'm a Libra, and they've got the balancing scales as the symbol. And,
Yep.
and funny, I perceive a lot of life in that way. There's got to be a balance of how people live. And many people live in fear. Many people live in love. And I feel those are the two polar opposites of one another. And maybe rather than scales, let's talk about a continuum.
Okay.
We've got fear at one end and love at the other.
Okay.
If we can change that emphasis on fear, which heaven knows the media is giving us fear every day, if we can change what our focus on away from fear and bring it towards love, loving relationships, loving letters, that's the mental space we'll be in, and that's the mental space the person who receives the letter will be in.
Absolutely.
And I think love is going to win the war.
I think so. I think so. For sure.
I think so. So I want to see that happen through these heartfelt letters. It's kindness, it's lovingness, it's gratitude. People live in a space of gratitude, they have a better life. And it's so great to be someone who can extend gratitude, and to occasionally be someone who receives gratitude. It just sends all that good stuff out there,
Absolutely. Well, someone made a comment in the chat, and in fact, you bring this up in your book. We talked about how maybe you want to express your love for someone, your appreciation, but maybe that person is gone. And so I'll bring the comment up. Gary says, my parents are gone, so tell them in my prayers. So what's your recommendation for someone that maybe, like, for example, I told you about my grandmother who passed away a while back. So how should we still write a letter? What would you recommend?
Yes, you can. And Gary, congratulations, because your prayers are a wonderful way to express your gratitude. But sometimes when a loved one passes away and you go, I should have told them, I wish I had said this. I wish I had whatever.
Yeah.
I wish, and they start living in regret. But there's no need to do that. I believe that the end isn't the end.
I believe that too.
Souls are permanent. They're everlasting. And I also believe that when we're thinking about a loved one, we're grabbing their attention. And so if you're thinking about them and sending loving thoughts, that's good. I believe that you can go ahead and write that letter of appreciation to that deceased loved one and say everything you would have said if you were sitting across the table from them today. And then you can present that letter in some interesting ways. You can You can go to the ocean at sunset, or if you're in the middle of the country, you can go to the mountains or to the desert. Find a quiet, peaceful environment. Read that letter out loud to your loved one. You can even, let's say you're in the middle of New York and you're going, well, that sounds good, but what's in New York that I can do?
Yeah, I've never been there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of crowded.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
That rumor.
and it's hard to find the ocean. I mean, you can, but it's not what you would envision as the ocean. And mountains aren't there right in New York City. So if you're in New York City, what do? Light a few candles, get in a quiet room, and just kind of make a space, maybe show a picture of that person you're talking to. You know, have a snapshot there or a framed photo, and then read that letter aloud. And I believe in the course of your reading that letter aloud that you're grabbing the attention of that person's soul, and they're hearing you. Now, what do you do after? Okay. What do you do after you've read that letter? This depends on how highly personal that letter is. Suppose this was to a departed spouse, and you had very personal thoughts that you wouldn't want anyone else to ever see.
Sure.
Well, you need to make that letter disappear, and whether it disappears by your shredding it and throwing it into the ocean, or burning it, or burying it where no one else will ever find it, that's a very personal decision on how to do that. But if, on the other hand, you had written to your spouse and said these wonderful things, and you have children, and your children would like to know your sentiments towards your deceased spouse, sure, give the letter to your children eventually, or put it in an envelope where they'll find it someday when you're gone.
Oh, I love that. Like in a little special fireproof box or whatever. Just
yes.
Oh, wow. I had another person bring up a good point. This is from Jean. She wrote, many believe that you can write a letter to the ones that are gone and then burn it, and the smoke brings the letter to your loved ones. That's a very nice thought.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I wonder if that's tied in some respect to the Native American culture too.
It could be. I never thought about that. But it's a nice thought. You know, Jean, I never thought about that, because now that we've talked, Lynette, I will be writing a letter to my grandmother, a personal letter to her. And, the smoke, that could be a belief, and it's like it's going up to her in heaven. It's a nice thought.
There you go.
So, well, it's been really great. Now, I did want to talk about another thing in your book. There's so many things you've written about people, and one of them was interesting enough, was about kindergartners. You can write a letter to a child who he or she has their first day of school. So now, a kindergartner doesn't have the vocabulary, obviously, that we do as adults. So what's your recommendation for someone writing a letter to a young child in nursery school or kindergarten?
Keep it very simple. Definitely read it aloud to them. And
read it to them, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then find a way to save it. Say, I'll save this for you if you want, or I'll bring it out and we can read it anytime you want. Kindergartners aren't always neat, but you might want to save that. Or, you could start a binder and write a letter on the first day of every year of school for a child.
That's good. Oh, every year. Yeah, absolutely. Like their first grade, second grade, third grade, going on up. I never thought about that.
And, if you do that, you can go the next step and put their school picture in there too. What a nice little package you'd end up with.
Wow. Yeah. I never would have thought about that.
It came to me.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So when said we're going to write a letter, I want to write a letter to somebody, or anybody's going to write a letter. So how many drafts could there be? I mean, one draft, two drafts? How often? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, when they write it, like, what would be a process? Like, reread the first draft, write the second draft, reread the first draft again? What order would you put that in if you could?
Well, the first thing you want to do, of course, is pretend you're sitting across the table from the person you're writing to, and just make your best effort at telling them what you think, all these positive things. once you've got your first draft, let it sit overnight or whatever, and then go back and read it and go, I could say this better, or I could say that better.
Sure.
So you might do a second draft. And my feeling is you might end up doing a third draft. And whether all of this is handwritten or whether it's on a computer, doesn't matter. But these are drafts. By the way, if your goal is to have a handwritten letter when you're finished, you can still compose on the computer if you want to, if that's how you think better, because you can print it out and then write it. That, you've got all this flexibility that you can do. But anyway, I would say you're probably going to end up with 3 drafts, 2 to 3 drafts. And at some point, you're going to maybe feel a little insecure about your spelling and your grammar. And you're thinking,
I would be.
am I going to be embarrassed to give this? What will I do now?
Sure.
Yeah. And now, even though I'm a professional copy editor and proofreader, I'm not here to pitch my business to you. I think that would be overkill for your purpose. But if you have a good friend or relative who's strong in English grammar and spelling and who's trustworthy and isn't going to try to rewrite your letter for you, ask that person for some help with this. Once you've got your best effort at a final draft, run that draft by the person and see if there's anything that needs last minute correction. And that way you can incorporate those corrections into it. Okay.
Sounds great. Oh, there's one thing I want to talk about too. We kind of touched on this before the show. I want to make sure that the audience understands this too. We talked about, Lynette, that let's say that a person wants to write a heartfelt letter to their mother or to their father or both. They're going to write a letter to both their parents. But this person also has a sibling or siblings, okay? What should that person do?
Make sure the siblings know you're planning to write a letter so they've got an opportunity to write one too. They don't want to end up looking bad. Let's suppose it's an 80th birthday and everybody's doing something and you're doing this one special letter. It's gonna outshine everything else there. You
Sure.
want to give the siblings a chance to do their own letters if they want to. Just say, I'm planning to do this. Of course, they may come back and say, well, just sign my name to it. And you say, no.
No, that's an individual
My
choice.
letter.
Yeah.
You write your own darn letter.
In other words, what you're saying, you're not blindsiding the siblings.
Right.
All of a
You're
sudden,
giving them an opportunity to be part of that. And you might even, mention to them, I'm planning to put it on nice stationery. As a matter of fact, I'm going to frame it. If that's what you're planning to do. If you don't want to frame it, well, you don't have to. But let them know what you're planning to do in general terms so that if they want to do, and just say, I wanted to let you know that. So if you wanted to do anything similar, you've got an opportunity. Done.
Sure.
Lend them your book on how to do it. But you don't necessarily need an entire book. I've got these bookmarks, and on the back of them,
I'm going to zoom in again. Okay.
What to include in your heartfelt letter of appreciation. Oh, you wanted to see that bookmark. Okay, here we go. That's the front of it. It's just talking about good reasons to write the letter. But on the back, it says what to include in your heartfelt letter of appreciation. So you can write this down right now because these are the main elements. Okay. Start the letter with a shared memory you both treasure, you and the person you're writing to. Then talk about that person's most admirable qualities and maybe give examples. That's where that word list came from, their admirable qualities. Then talk about the positive difference that person has made in your life or in the lives of others. Then say thank you in whatever wording you want to use, and then sign it. Done.
That's perfect. Simple and right to the point.
Yep.
But also, can I read something else on that bookmark? And ladies and gentlemen, this spoke to me. At the top of her bookmark that Lynette has, it has a quote from William Arthur Ward. And I want you to listen to this very carefully, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes, again, we're procrastinators. Maybe sometimes we think, then the receiver might think it's corny. But I want you to think about this, ladies and gentlemen, about a person that you think is special in your life. The quote is, "Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it." To me, that is so powerful.
Yes, and on the other side, it says gratitude is literally one of the few things that can measurably change people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about a little more about your book, Lynette. Let me bring the cover up again. And ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the cover of Lynette's wonderful, wonderful book. Again, I have my own copy. So it says, it's called How to Write Heartfelt Letters to Treasure for Special Occasions and Occasions Made Special. I mean, your little voice gave you the perfect title for this book. So I'm going to bring up another little card that you presented about how to order the book. I'm going to show this to our audience as well. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to look at that, there's a website. You can call, you can email. Lynette, is there any other way that people could buy your book or find your book somewhere?
They can find my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's also available as an ebook on those same websites, as well as at smashwords.com. So anywhere, any major retailers, you're going to be able to find it there. And I want to mention, by the way, that in the printed version, the price is lower than you see there by a few dollars. So you'll find happy news when you check out the price. You can go to the website, look at the page that talks about this book, and it will give you all the options for means to order it. So generally speaking, it's just easier to go to one of the major retailers online. But if you wanted a signed copy for some reason, such as if it were going to be a gift for somebody, or with a custom inscription, you and I could converse about that by email or telephone and work out a way to make that happen.
Again, getting a personal touch.
You betcha. You betcha.
In fact, I think I've told you already that my mother may take this book away from me because she wants to read it after I'm through. So I got to hurry up and give it to her because she really wants to see it too.
I'd like to mention a couple of things that are in the book
Sure. Please.
That are helpful as well. There's a couple of sections. One of them is called inspirational thoughts to quote in your letters. Sometimes you'd like to start a letter with some famous quotation or end it with one. And so I have a section in here that, these quotes are organized by age or appreciation, various themes: children, parents, and grandparents, forgiveness, legacy,
perfect,
love and friendship, spiritual faith and devotion, military and patriotism, leadership and teamwork, teaching, learning, and striving. So there's a lot of themes in there where you can pick up famous quotations. And despite everything that you've been given in the way of a tool with the words and the quotes and the chapters that give you some prompting questions what to write about, you may still be pen-tied. Not
pen-tied. I never thought about that. Pen-tied.
you stick that pen on the paper and you go, can't make a sentence come out. Doggone it, what do I do now? Appendix C, great beginnings to jumpstart your sentences.
Okay, perfect.
Also by theme: shared past experiences, shared present experiences, thoughtful reflections, legacy acknowledgments, longing for another, congratulations and or looking to the future, recommendation or reference, general appreciation, mending a torn relationship, eulogy or remembrance, condolences and appreciation.
Oh, I like that.
So there are all kinds of things. Shared present experiences. Here's just one example only. To you, it may seem like just getting together for coffee with a friend, but it means so much more to me because, and then you finish it.
Wow, that is, oh man. The possibilities are endless.
This book. Really.
So, ladies and
And
gentlemen, please, if you haven't already, and you're really, like I said, if you're really thinking about a loved one, spouse, parent, grandparent, child, and even if they're gone, this would be the place to look right here. And I can personally endorse this book because it is awesome. There's some parts in there that really don't apply to me as far as but it's still interesting nonetheless, and to share with others.
I would like to add this is the easy way to use this book. There's 3 sections to it, and the first section applies to any letter you're going to write. Just read that, all 19 pages of it. It's grueling, but you can do it. And then glimpse through the appendix, find those positive words you're thinking about, be aware of what else is back there, and then go to the right chapter for the type of letter you want to write. This is a reference book. So
Absolutely.
you don't have to go cover to cover. It's a whole half-inch thick, but you don't have to go cover to cover. You just jump around and do what you want.
Absolutely.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen.
Was that still too thick a book for you and too much to tackle? Well, guess what? I've got skinny guys. Okay, these guys are skinny. I've got 6 of them that are written on a theme such as to an older friend or relative. It's got those same 19 pages at the beginning, but after that, it only contains what you're going to need from the appendix and from that letter itself to write that type of letter. So you can take it the easy way, but if you think you're going to need at least 2 of those, you're better off financially getting the book, the big book.
Sure. I would recommend that as well. It's every chapter, everything written in there. It's very useful. And Lynette, I mean, really, you did a wonderful job. And I can honestly say, you already have, but this book, you will be touching a lot of lives. You've touched mine for sure.
Thank you so much, and that makes me feel good.
Well, Lynette, I don't have any more questions. Did you have anything that you would like to add?
I think I kept saying, but wait, there's more a whole bunch of times already.
Nothing wrong with that.
As long as what's more is good and not another commercial.
Absolutely.
But yes, I have poured my heart and soul and research into this book, and it contains the means to write 157 types of letters.
Wow.
Pretty comprehensive.
Well, yes.
Handy tool, makes a great gift, makes a great reference for your own desk. Oh, I know what I wanted to say.
Sure, go ahead.
It feels really good to write these letters. You may find, even though you're planning to write only one, that you felt so good you want to do it some more. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing. Not at all.
Look at all the love you're spreading.
Sure. And that like what the Beatles say, all we need is love.
All we need is love. Yep, da 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 da.
There it is. I just aged myself with that, by the way.
And well, I aged myself already. So
well, Lynette, it's been a wonderful, wonderful interview. I thank you very much for taking your time out to be on the show and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. It's really been appreciated. So thank you so much.
thank you for the honor of being here and the chance to spread the good word about writing those letters. Remember, when the magnitude of your gratitude is bigger than a thank you note, write a heartfelt letter of appreciation.
That's a good thought. All right. Lynette, again, thank you for being here, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a reminder, we are live every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock Central Time and 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, because as I've said past few weeks, this show may be expanding. We may have some specials throughout the week instead of just a Tuesday night. So if you hit that subscribe button, you might get some alerts, and hopefully working on getting some musical entertainment in here, some different musicians that I've been talking to of different genres. So that's something to pay attention to. Again, I really appreciate you being here tonight. And this is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.